Hello. Welcome to day two of APA's Technology, Mind, and Society Conference. I hope you've been enjoying our featured paper presentations and symposia and taking the time to learn more about our exhibitors. As a reminder, all poster and paper presentations are available to you on demand at any time for the next 6 months. The keynotes and symposia will be recorded and will be available to you on demand as well. A lot of the work presented at TMS explores the impacts of technology in different sectors, such as healthcare or education. In the last 18 months, we have witnessed a radical change in our educational system, moving to remote learning almost overnight. Obviously, technology made that change possible. What other roles can technology and the AI that drives it play in our teaching and learning? Our next presenter has a lot to say on that subject. Dr. Rosemary Luckin is Professor of Learner-Centered Design at the University College London's Knowledge Lab. Her work focuses on the design and evaluation of educational technologies, drawing from the theories of learning science and the applications of artificial intelligence. Dr. Luckin is also the director of Educate, a hub bringing together startups, educators, and researchers to develop evidence-informed educational technologies. She is past president and current treasurer of the International Society for AI in Education and the co-founder of the Institute for Ethical AI in Education. Today, Dr. Luckin will be presenting 2 reasons why it matters for education that AI is intelligence, but not as we know it. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Luckin.
Hello, my name's Rose Luckin, and it's a real pleasure to be presenting to you today. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of TMS. It's a real thrill. I just only wish I could be there with you in person, but at least we have technology that enables us to go on in an almost normal sort of way when it comes to conferences and events. So I want to talk to you today about artificial intelligence and how there are 2 reasons why it matters for education that artificial intelligence is intelligence, but just not as we know it, or perhaps put another way, just not as we humans are intelligent. But first of all, the definition of AI is heavily contested, but I think for today it's fine to think of it in terms of technology capable of actions and behaviours that require intelligence when done by humans. It's a very general definition, and I think it's fine. Another important point before we get into those 2 reasons is to think about why artificial intelligence has become such a popular topic of conversation, why education and educators would be thinking about artificial intelligence. Why is it changing so much of our lives? Well, it's really due to a perfect storm. We now have available to us vast amounts of data. We have very sophisticated artificially intelligent algorithms that can process that data and learn from that data. And we have the computing power and the memory to be able to enable those algorithms to process that data and to be able to store the data and the results of the processing. And we've never really had those 3 things together until the last few years, and that's made a huge difference. But I want to focus particularly on machine learning as a form of artificial intelligence today. It's not all of AI, but it is a form of artificial intelligence. And it's the form of AI that allows computer systems to learn from data, thinking of that data as being the machine's experience, learning from examples, learning from experience, learning from data. And through enabling computers to perform learning through data, they can do specific tasks intelligently. So machine learning systems can carry out complex processes by learning from data rather than through some pre-programmed set of rules, as was the case with early AI systems. So it's really this reliance on data that's key to thinking about the question about education and why the differences between human and artificial intelligence are important when we think about education. And when we think about data, the food, if you like, of the AI algorithm, we need to be constantly asking, so how can data be used to improve learning? Well, a popular phrase introduced, I think it was by The Economist or the Financial Times a few years ago, was data is the new oil. And it's certainly the power behind AI, and it has made some people very, very wealthy, just like oil. But also, just like oil, it's unrefined. And it's in the refinement of that data that you really start to see the power of AI. And you can see that that power could be the power behind human intelligence. And so, what machine learning AI can do is that it can learn, it can adapt, and it can, in some aspects, act autonomously. And this is important. What machine learning AI is good at and what people are good at, and the differences between those are really important for how best we can leverage AI to the benefit of education. So, very briefly, if we think about our machine learning AI, then it's very, very good at processing enormous amounts of data to find patterns, to classify things, so to recognize an image as being an image of a bridge, not a cat, and to categorize things appropriately. For example, it's really good for automating and replicating repetitive tasks because, unlike us, it doesn't get tired, it's consistent in its performance, it can process huge amounts of data, we can store large amounts of data and therefore process it. We can collect and integrate lots of different sorts of data, and we can reduce really complex phenomenon to human acceptable pieces, things that our human cognition can consume. So it really can help us with very, very complex problems and challenges, lots of those in the world today. But then when we think about humans, actually, we're really good at looking across multiple disciplines. Now, AI can certainly develop an academic intelligence in a particular subject area, but we have very specific AI at the moment. So you could have an AI system that's really good at playing chess or being a surgeon or understanding geography or understanding a particular medical aspect, such a particular illness or particular diagnostics. But we as humans can look across multiple disciplines and see the connections. That's much harder for AI. We can also develop a meta-knowing intelligence or a personal epistemology about what knowledge is, where it comes from, why we should believe something to be true or not. And again, AI can help us with that, but that meta aspect is very difficult for machine learning AI. Social intelligence, core part of being human, very hard for AI. And then these next three, metacognitive, metasubjective, metacontextual, impossible for machine learning AI. We can develop these to a hugely sophisticated level. We need help, but we can. So we can become aware of our own thinking. Are we planning? Are we monitoring? Are we reflecting appropriately? We can become aware of the development of our emotional intelligence, the development of the emotional intelligence of others, our emotions, their emotions, and how that impacts on how we're working together or our relationships. Metacontextual intelligence is amazing. Humans have it in spades. Really very hard for AI. We can move around the world when we're allowed to. Due to COVID restrictions, we haven't perhaps been as allowed to move around as much as we would previously have been doing, but we can go from place to place, interact with different people. We can do it seamlessly. And that's incredibly difficult and very, very sophisticated. And if we get all that together, we can set our own goals. We can have accurate perceived self-efficacy. And that's very hard for any AI to develop that self-understanding, to develop that ability to reflect on one's own cognition, one's own feelings, to be self-aware, and therefore to be self-effective. So this is an area where humans and AI are very different. And for the theory behind all of that, I wrote this book in 2018, which goes into a lot of the theory about that. But for today, let's now think about why those differences matter for education. What is it about the way that AI learns through data? So we're talking about machine learning AI in a way that's different, and it has different skills and ability to us, that is important for education. So the first reason that the differences are important is to be found in the way that AI can help us tackle some of our biggest educational challenges, because it's different to us, because it can process enormous amounts of data. It can analyze in real time very complex things like facial expressions, voice, masses of data, and help us as educators or as learners to understand more about our learning and to receive the kind of personalized adaptive learning that can help us. And that's just one of the ways that AI's particular strengths can help us to tackle the challenges that we face as educators. But the second reason is one that we don't tend to focus on, because we tend to focus on thinking about how can we use AI to solve the problems we face. And the way that we use it and its ability to do things that help us and that are different to what we can do is because it's a different kind of intelligence. But AI can also help us to much better understand the problems that we want to solve. Again, because it's not the same as human intelligence. And then we can make much better decisions about how to use AI to solve these problems. And this is the second reason. And this is the one that we don't really think about. And it's what we call AI readiness. Now, I haven't got time today to go through all the 7 steps that I've laid out in front of you, which are part of our AI readiness framework. What I can do is give you a flavor through a worked example, because it's all about finding, tailoring, and honing. And notice the acronym, very important, because we must do everything ethically. So finding a particular challenge. Now, let's take an example. A very common challenge in the past year, 18 months, has been how can we know what's going on when we're having to change the way we educate people through the pandemic? Are we providing continuously high quality teaching? Are we maintaining the standards that we would normally expect, as some students are learning online, some face to face? So that's a good challenge. And so, yes, we could go through the steps of identifying relevant data we've already got, collecting new data, but I'm going to skip to the stage of applying AI, because this is the really important bit about understanding why the different way that AI learns is really important for how we can understand the challenges that we're facing in a much more detailed and accurate way. And I'm going to use a cooking analogy to think about how we can apply artificial intelligence to the data that we could put our hands on in this example, that would tell us something about whether the lessons that we've been delivering have been continuous, have they been the same standard, are they coherent across the different months and the different distance and face-to-face and hybrid learning situations. So if we think about applying some AI to that data as being a little bit like cooking, there are lots of different ways that you can go about cooking. So we can roast, we can grill, we can fry, but in actual fact, the method that we choose will be largely decided by the ingredients that we have available to us and the thing that we want to make. And it's the same with AI. Let's look at the kind of ingredients that we might have available to us. And this is ingredients, think of data, to think about that, looking at the different lessons that have been delivered and trying to learn enough about them to understand whether we have maintained standards, quality, coherence. So we might have log data from interactions with technology. We might have historical data from tests or interviews or videos. We might have video data. If we were really lucky, we might have some eye tracking data that we could gather from that video. We might have behavioral data from a survey. So they're our ingredients. And just like when you're cooking, you have ingredients. So just imagine it's one of those shows that you see on the TV and you're presented with some ingredients covered by a cloth on a table, and you know that you've got to make something amazing from these ingredients. You've got to use them all. You can't have anything else, and you've got to do it. So there we go. That's what's happened here. We've got some whipped cream, we've got some raspberries, we've got some eggs, and we've got some sugar. So what could we make? What kind of cooking method would we apply? Same question that we're asking about what kind of AI method would we apply to our ingredients in the form of data. So yeah, I'm looking at these ingredients and I'm thinking, well, really, I don't think grilling's going to work. Not sure about boiling or frying. I think baking is likely to be the most successful to apply to these ingredients. Fair enough. We would go through the same process with our data. And then I think, what would the end product be? Well, it could be some nice little raspberry meringues, could be raspberry souffle. I need to decide which is the one that's going to meet my requirements. And I want to win this competition. And I think my raspberry souffles are likely to be better than my raspberry meringues. So I'm going to go for the raspberry souffle. So let's have a look at our data ingredients again and have a think about what's going on here. So we've got our data, and just in the same way, let's lay them out on the table. We've got our logs, we've got our conversations, we've got our attainment data, our recordings, some with eye tracking, got our survey. We need to prepare them. Now, just like we would have to do for our souffles, we have to clean them. One of the things people always forget is we have to clean the data. So just like washing the raspberries, we need to clean the data. And then we have to mix the eggs. We have to whisk them up, and we have to whisk up the cream, and we have to combine things. Well, it's just the same with the data. We clean it, we mix it, we rationalize it, we standardize it, and we mix it all together. And that helps us not to produce some raspberry souffles that we're going to bake in the oven, but to increase our understanding about the problem represented by that data. So if we go back to our lovely data ingredients and we think about the workflow here, you can see that we've gone through cleaning, integration, preparation. That's the mixing and the washing. We could do some feature engineering and selection, and we could use some AI to learn how we could simplify what we're finding from our analysis. So, for example, using some AI, we could use the natural groupings in the data to come up with some profiles to describe the different lessons that have happened over the last year. And these profiles could be very useful. Now, it may be through feature engineering and selection, we're able to identify the key features that differentiate the different lessons that have happened. It might be the average amount of online activity as opposed to face-to-face, might be the geographic location of the student, home or school, might be the style of the interaction, whole class or group. It might be whether technology other than just an online platform was being used. Perhaps that made a difference. And so we can build a model that we can probe to understand our challenge about wanting to know more about the lessons that have happened so that we can make judgments about quality, standards, coherence, and consistency. And so that application that I've likened to cooking, that application of AI can really start to show us things about a challenge, such as quality and standards of education when a time of turbulence. And learning, what can we learn? So we've got these profiles and we know that they're separated by 4 features. Perhaps we might like to compare those features to some survey data that we have about student confidence. Perhaps we can start to learn whether there's a particular profile of lesson that was likely to be correlated with increased student confidence. We could do something similar with teacher confidence. We can look for relationships between the different types of data because we've used AI to build a model that we can then probe to help us understand the particular challenge that we've decided to focus on through those 7 steps. So that was just a very brief example of the sorts of questions you can ask from your data to really try and understand that challenge. And then you're in a much better position to make very wise choices of how you might apply AI to that challenge. I always remind everybody that ethics is super important when it comes to any form of AI, whether you're using it to understand a challenge or whether you're using it to tackle a challenge. It's really important that we treat the data, we treat its processing with the utmost care to ensure that we do no harm. And in this 7-step framework, we're very keen that people also iterate, that when you've developed an increased understanding, you're in a better position to say, well, actually, I'd like to probe that data a bit more, or I'd like to go back to my community, my colleagues, and try and help them understand more about AI through what we're uncovering in our analysis. So yes, I think there are 2 reasons. I'm sure there's more than 2, but there are 2 reasons why it really matters for education that AI intelligence is not the same as human intelligence. It is intelligence, but it's not as we know intelligence. Firstly, AI can complement our human intelligence to help us tackle complex challenges. If it was the same as us, it wouldn't be able to do that. It couldn't be the same as us. But it's important that it's different and it's complementary. And AI can help us to understand those challenges much, much better. And therefore, we can make much more accurate, useful, and likely to be effective decisions about how to apply AI in education. And I've added a few references there because they could be helpful. Obviously, you'll be able to get a copy of the slides, so you'll be able to see those. I hope they're useful. Thank you once again for inviting me to speak at TMS. I've really enjoyed thinking about what you might find interesting, and I hope that you have found this interesting, understandable, and I look forward to a discussion. Thank you very much.